in the meeting. And I don't have the ability to do the roll call from where I am.
Not a problem. So why don't we go ahead and start off with that? I have already identified a few folks, but I'll go ahead and run through everyone here. So of course we have Secretary McCord. Elizabeth Hughes will not be joining us. Let's see, Bert Cumero.
Here.
Natalie Chabot.
Here.
Bob Campbell. Nicholas Redding.
Here.
Dan Spedden.
I'm here. Good morning.
Good morning. Dennis Doster.
Here.
Pete Lesher.
Present.
John Kennard. Marianne Harms.
Here.
Janice Hayes Williams. Amy Seitz. Lee Towers.
Here.
Liz Fitzsimmons.
Here.
Nita Satino.
Here.
Marty Baker.
Hi, good morning.
Good
I'm
morning.
Francine Waters. I am stepping in for Marty today on behalf of MDOT.
Good morning, Francine. Thank you for
Good
joining
morning.
us. Roland Agrede. And Bruce Lesh.
Here.
Wonderful. So yes, we do indeed have quorum.
All right, thank you very much. Let's go ahead and entertain a motion to approve the minutes from January 14th. Actually, January 13th.
Pete Lesher, I'll move resolution R200 for, R100 for the minutes.
Yeah, it's Dan Spedden. I'll second that.
All right, thanks for the motion and second. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye.
Hi.
Hi.
Aye.
Hi.
Any opposed or any corrections to the minutes? Seeing none, the minutes are approved. Thank you very much. Andrew, go ahead and move into the management report for us.
Certainly. And if I may, I'd like to go ahead and slightly move from the agenda here just because of the actions that were taken yesterday with the emergency grant. So previously this was under the action items, but since it has already been approved, I'll be covering it as part of my management update here, if that's all right.
That's fine.
So today I would like to bring to all of your attention an emergency grant that was approved by the executive committee just yesterday, going to the Delmarva Discovery Museum and Center for a total of $27,788. This emergency grant was to address significant damages that had occurred on their River Otter exhibit, and you can see the damages pictured below. A leak had caused these damages and had made the exhibit uninhabitable for the 2 river otters that are currently part of the museum, and as such they had to be moved to a temporary location where they could only reasonably stay for 30 or so days before it would impact their health. Now, back in fiscal year 2016, we all had approved a $90,000 capital grant to design this exhibit, and it was back in March of this year, March 15th, when the leak was identified. Since then, I've been working with the president of Delmarva Discovery Museum, Ms. Christy Gordon, who has been doing everything in her power to take care of these otters during this turbulent time and ensure that they'll be able to get a new safe home. And I believe we are actually joined today by Ms. Christy Gordon. I think I saw her stop in today.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for joining us. So yes, just yesterday, the executive committee met and voted unanimously to approve this emergency grant for the sum requested. But I wanted to bring this emergency grant before the entire authority. And in the Google Share Drive, you have access to the entire emergency grant, so you can review it at your leisure. But I wanted to see if the authority had any questions for myself or for Christy or perhaps the executive committee in regards to this emergency grant. Yes, I see a hand from Lisa.
This is not a question. It is just a huge thank you for the unanimous approval and for all of Christie's hard work on making this happen. I almost feel emotional. I know those otters are depending on it, so thank you.
All right. Anything else?
Looks like Marianne wants to say something.
Certainly.
I am delighted. I've just recently rotated off the board of the Marine Museum in Solomons after 20 years on and off. And the otter exhibit there is one of the most popular things at the museum. 3 otters. And their mission in life is to escape and spend the rest of their days in the marshes of the bay. So I am delighted that these are, safe, and they're going to have a new exhibit. And it's a lovely thing, and the public absolutely adores these little creatures. So thank you, Christy, so very much.
Thank you. Thank you to everyone. I can't tell you how fantastic this is. This is going to make such a huge difference for us. I don't know if you can see in the background, McIntosh, they're swimming in behind me, and they're ready to get back on the other side of their exhibit. They've been out in the water for a while. Can you see them? So they're all excited. They know something's going on, but we could not have done this without you, and I don't know how to thank you all enough for giving us this grant so that we can put them home. Thank you so much. Can you see them swimming?
Yes, we could see them.
They're ready to put on a show.
It's nothing that we have lives at risk, and these were lives in the animal kingdom at risk, but they were also icons of lots of children who had visited these exhibits, been part of their education about the environment, and these otters represent ambassadors to that, and a window into caring for the rest of the estuary system. So I think that there wasn't really that much debate. We wanted to make sure that the fix would be a longer term fix, and the fix would lead to being able to detect problems earlier on, so that we wouldn't have kind of an emergency situation in the future. So it seemed to meet all of the internal requirements I had placed on my review of this. So happy to support it. Happy that the otters will be back in their full ability to enjoy the way they've been exhibited, and bringing the message to the children is certainly extremely important. So thank you for what you do, Christy. Appreciate it.
Thank you. They should be finished tomorrow, and the otters should be back on the other side of their home by hopefully Saturday. So we're going to videotape them getting in there for the first time in a month. So that's going to be a great video. It'll be on our Facebook page. So if you all want to check and see how happy they are about this, you can just follow it on Facebook, and you'll be able to see the first time they're in there for a month.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
All right. So I think we are good to jump into the management report proper here. The first item on our management report here for today is going to be in regards to the financing fund. As usual, you can find the complete financing fund on our Google Share Drive if you'd like to get into the real details of exactly where each of our grants currently stand. But just to give you an overview of where we're at now, our current financing fund lists $45,636.17. Of course, that value does not take into account the emergency grant that we have just awarded yesterday. So once we take that number into account, we are actually sitting at $17,848.17. So we are still in good standing and do still have a small balance left over for potential future emergency grants. And looking forward towards the next fiscal year, as far as we can tell, we are expecting to receive the full appropriation of $6 million, meaning we will have 5.4 available for our fiscal year 23 grant round. Do we have any questions on the financing fund for today? Okay. Hearing none, I'll go ahead and move on to an update on staff vacancies and workload management. So you'll recall this time last January when Elizabeth updated you all on the fact that I'm going to be currently the only staff member with MHAA, and the hope was to soon have 2 new staff members on board. I'm afraid we do not have anyone new to introduce just yet, but the hope is that we will have 2 new staff members on board for our July meeting. So right now, although we haven't been able to bring anyone on, we have conducted interviews for both the administrator and assistant administrator positions, and selection is currently underway for both of those roles. We're hoping to have at least the administrator role filled by the end of this month or the beginning of next month. Hopefully that will be just in time to help smooth over the transition, or to smooth over the workload for reviewing all of the grants that we've received for this year. I also want to briefly take a moment to thank both the Coalition and the Maryland Historical Trust for providing really invaluable assistance during this time and being as incredibly accommodating as possible to ensure that MHAA is continuing to run at its full capacity despite the staffing issues that it is facing at the moment. But in short, we are hoping that once we meet again in July, we'll have 2 new staff members to introduce for today. Any questions on the staff vacancies or workload management here? All right, hearing none, I'll go ahead and move on to fiscal year 23 grant round. So I'm pleased to share that the grant round is still going on quite well. Last time we met, I updated you all on the fact that we had received our intent to apply forms, and today I'm happy to share that we have received all of our full applications that came in just last Friday was the final deadline for edits. But there is actually one piece of information that I want to bring before you, just so you all are aware of the situation. And that is that the number of full applications that we received this year, just like the number of intent to applies, is actually down somewhat significantly from the previous year. So last year we received 202 full applications. This year we have only received 143 full applications. And whereas last year we had a $9.1 million ask, this year we are looking at a $6.4 million ask. Overall, roughly a 30% decrease in both ask and number of applications. Now, I don't have an exact reason as to why that is the case. However, I do have a handful of pieces of anecdotal evidence that I've received both speaking with members of the coalition as well as applicants who had come in for previous years but chose not to come in this year. And really, I've been able to identify 3 key factors that have likely impacted the reduced amount of applications. However, I will be conducting a more thorough investigation into exactly why the numbers are so much lower. And I will hopefully have a report to share with you all at the July meeting so you can have a better sense as to why that is the case. But in the meantime, I want to share the 3 reasons that I have heard just anecdotally from folks so you all can get a sense of what is going on here. The first reason is, of course, COVID. Simply put, many organizations are struggling financially after the 2 or so years of limited visitation at their sites. This means that a lot of sites are just not in a position where they feel comfortable picking up a new project grant. The second reason that I've heard from folks is high staff turnover. One of the things that I've noticed just working with our current grantees is there really isn't a week that goes by where I don't meet a new executive director, grant manager, project manager, because turnover over these past few months has been so high in the heritage field. What this means is a lot of cases, the new folks that are joining their programs are interested in wrapping up the grants that they're currently working on before they pick up new projects. And finally, the third reason that I've heard from folks actually has to do with a combination of these 2 things. And that is, I've heard from a handful of organizations that say that early on, when COVID first struck, they kind of rushed to take on quite a few different projects so they could get that infusion of cash that they needed to remain in operation. But now they are working to complete those projects and really have their plates full and are not in a position where they can pick up new projects based on the obligations they took during the earlier parts of the COVID pandemic. But again, these three pieces of evidence are purely anecdotal, they're not analytical, and I will hope to have a thorough report to all of you about why the numbers are down so significantly ahead of the July meeting. Now, to wrap up on good news, we are clear to move ahead with the rest of the grant round. The entire grants review panel has been selected and trained, and they'll be receiving their packets of grants at the end of the month. Then, on July 3rd, they'll be submitting their final rankings, and we'll be holding 2 grant review meetings on June 3rd is when they're receiving their grant review scores. And we'll be holding 2 grant review meetings on June 6th and 13th, where they will generate the grant chart for your review and approval. So to summarize, although the grant numbers are lower than expected, they are still higher than our appropriation, and we are in a good position to continue moving forward with the grant round despite the lower numbers. So, does anyone have any questions on the status of the current grant round?
Andrew,
Andrew?
sorry.
No, go ahead.
This is Natalie. I was just curious, and I don't know if you have the history. Don't grant applications tend to go up and down, in the past? I mean, is it that much of a concern? It seems like I remember there were some years that, the numbers just were down. And my other question is, maybe that wasn't a question. In the past, authority members have been asked to take on reviewing some grants. Is that not necessary this year because there are fewer number of grant applications to be reviewed?
Sure. So let me address the first question. With the numbers, over the past several years, we have actually seen year over year an increase in the both request and number of grants. However, previously, before our appropriation was increased, we had seen sort of a fluctuation. But ever since we started receiving the $6 million appropriation, we have seen an increase year over year. So that's really the only reason that this is surprising. Last year, of course, we had a record number of requests. So I think we were expecting to continue to see that to rise. But it is entirely possible that this could represent just some natural fluctuation or a return from a record high last year. And then in regards to the second half of your question, yes, we will actually still need members of the authority to review both management and marketing grants. Those 2 grants have not been due yet, and they are treated differently than all of our project grants. But yes, we will still need folks to do that, and I'll be discussing that a little bit more at the end of the presentation today.
Thank you.
Sure thing. I think I had a question from Dan.
Yeah, Andrew, my experience, COVID relief money, ARPA money, CARES Act money is flowing around so freely that some people just aren't tapping their normal grant routines and opportunities. I know personally I'm not. There's areas that I'm not going after money because it's coming so quickly through ARPA that it seems almost greedy at times because it's a lot of extra work. So it might just be we see the number of applications go back up as COVID relief dollars wane.
Yeah, certainly. I think that's a great point, and I'm hopeful that that's something that I'll hear from folks as well. Thank you for that. I see we have a question from Nita.
Hi, I just wanted to confirm that I heard you right, that you have $6.4 million in grant application requests and a budget of $6 million.
We have $6.4 million in request, and although our budget is $6 million, we only reserve $5.4 million for our grants. And of those 5.4, usually around $500,000 or so, actually it's usually a little bit larger than that, goes toward maybe 1.2 or 3 million goes towards management and marketing. So we are not in a position where we won't be able, or we have an ask that is lower than what we actually have in terms of budget. And yes, that's correct. $300,000 does go to the MHT non-capital program. Thank you, Lucille. Any other questions on this year's grant round? Okay, hearing none, I'll go ahead and move on. Next up, we have an update on the Racial Equity Working Group. I am thrilled to share that the first meeting between our new facilitator, Symphonic Strategies, and our Racial Equity Working Group was a success. Coming out of that meeting, we received a lot of great feedback from members of the coalition, as well as members on the Racial Equity Working Group, as to how to proceed and better organize this process to be more successful. And we are looking towards our next meeting being sometime at the end of this month or the beginning of next month, hopefully coinciding closely with the arrival of a new administrator for the program. Part of the reason for the actual sort of delay in when we will be meeting with Symphonic is because we are in the process of collecting the kind of data that Symphonic will need to take the next big step in their process. So as we speak, they are currently working on the more quantitative side of their analysis. Back in the early months of the year, I provided them with all sorts of organizational documents, everything from all of our previous grants to our bylaws and regulations and statutes, really everything they could possibly want. And they have been sifting through that data right now, performing all of the quantitative analysis and doing that sort of background work. But as we move further and further into the spring and start to approach summer, they're going to be shifting their focus away from that quantitative work into some more sort of qualitative work, conducting a series of interviews and focus groups to better get a sense of the overall reach of the program and the sort of overall feel of the program. Again, just to sort of focus in on the end goal here, they will be producing an audit of the program that will be presented to you all either at the July or October meeting, depending on the speed of which they are able to conduct those interviews. And this audit really is representing the first step in our Racial Equity Working Group efforts, as it will set us up with a series of goals to look at for future steps for facilitation and how we might improve our program in this lens. But again, just to summarize, the first meeting was a success, and we will be meeting once again with the Racial Equity Working Group at the end of this month or the beginning of next. Any questions on the working group?
Let me just say, Andrew, I appreciate you keeping me apprised of what's going on with that as it develops. I commend you for making sure that I understand how they're doing the work and how it's moving along. So you're keeping the flow of information literally to the chair wide open. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
My pleasure. Absolutely. All right. Hearing nothing else, that concludes my management report for today.
All right. Thank you very much, Andrew.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have the coalition report. Bridget and Lucille.
Hi, good morning, everybody. It's been a busy legislative session. As Andrew noted, the Maryland Heritage Areas Coalition, all 13 of us, are responsible really for defending the program and the funding for the program, which we have successfully done again this year, $6 million coming from program Open Space. And as some of you may recall, and some of you might be new, a couple years ago, the coalition also led the charge to lift the cap on the funding. We were initially at $3 million, which was really not an acceptable level for the amount of work and granting that this organization does. So we were able to lift the cap and then double the funding to $6 million. This year, we decided not to take a legislative approach at this time, but we are considering a legislative approach in the future to raise the funds, again, even with the lower ask this year, with it's 5.1 going to the grants. You have 5.4 There's 600 reserved for administration on the MHAA, MHT side, plus the additional 300,000 that MHT takes each year for their grant. So that leaves 5.1, and then you take out the management grants, which are essential because we are the program trying to be boots on the ground. It then reduces that into the fours. And there are so many grants out there that are worthy that aren't able to be funded each year. So we're looking ahead to that, laying the groundwork for that. We partnered with a number of organizations to support their legislation and their initiatives by testifying as well as by writing letters of support. We did ask for a supplemental funding this year, but we understood it's an odd ask because the Maryland Heritage Areas Coalition, we are not governmental, we're not a legal entity. So in order really for that, we got a wonderful responses from Secretary Brinkley and others. We were considered, but because we are not really an entity, it would have had to be a planning ask. And we of course understand that planning would have difficulty asking for that because the funds would not be going to planning. So it's kind of confusing on that level. And we're gonna look at options in the future to maybe help that be a little clearer. We also specifically worked with Andrew on one particular bill from behind the scenes, just because it would have put an onus on some of the reporting requirements for the MHAA program. Not that we were totally against it, but that we were concerned that it would be an additional burden on MHAA and MHT and their work that they do for this program. And so we were glad that it stalled in committee as they can consider it for the future and maybe can fine tune it so it'll be more applicable and useful, particularly with smaller programs like ours. And we also did a lot of legislative outreach. We were at Maryland Day at Lawyers Mall. Many legislators came by. We partnered with the Rural Maryland Council and other organizations, had a great table, great responses. We're able to talk to a number of people about what our grants are, who we are, and what we do, and why it's important. We are also, and I want to thank Bridget and Carol. They came to that as well in support, and all of the Heritage Area directors were in support. So it was a great day. We handed out Krabby Corn, which is very popular, I'm told, by several legislators who have specifically requested that I show up with more of that. Oh, thank you, Andrew. I gave Andrew last minute pictures. I was like, oh no, I forgot about Maryland Day. So with his amazing wizardry, he has dropped that in. And we were able, again, to show the impact report. It's really important that we show often ourselves to the legislature as a unit. I am the Southern Maryland Heritage Area. But it's really important when we're doing our legislative outreach that we are the Maryland Heritage Areas Coalition, because we're 13, but we're one at the same time. So that's what we do. Also at MACO and MML, which we are participating in this year, and all fingers crossed that everyone's health and everything continues in the right way, because we're really looking forward to the advocacy that provides. Additionally, the Grants Council, we have Gail does an amazing job with this particular council. As some of you all may recall, the Grants Council was a piece of legislation that we did have to go up against because it was not looking at our program the same way. They were looking at us the same way as the Health and Human Services program. So they weren't understanding that this particular grant program is very, very responsive and very specific to the grantees. And we don't also handle federal money and that kind of thing. So there's a Grants Council that is moving ahead to try to make it a universal form in Maryland. And that might work really well for the big organizations. And we would really support whatever helps those big Health and Human Services, et cetera, organizations streamline their process. It just doesn't apply to this particular granting opportunity. And so Gail, our director, who is advocating for us, continually advocates for an exception, because it would be really problematic to our program. And I won't go into the specifics unless you'd like more of what that is about. And that's pretty much our report right now. If any questions that you have? None? Okay, thank you all. Yep, there we are. Thank you, Andrew.
Lucille, let the chair just acknowledge that your informed advocacy really makes a difference and is very much appreciated. And I really want to make sure that people recognize that you have been a formidable force for this program. And I just want to say that out loud. So thank you very much.
Very kind. Thank you. It's a group effort, but thank you very much.
Yeah. All right, Andrew, we're down to Heritage Area Director highlights.
Shall I take the plunge, Andrew?
Absolutely.
Go right ahead.
So thank you all. This is Liz Chateau from the heart of the Civil War Heritage Area, and I'm delighted to share a couple of slides and an update for you. I actually opted not to give an update at the January meeting, so we're starting here with a slide from November, and what you see here is Congressman Trone and the Secretary of the Interior, Holland, visiting the Newcomer House. And they were on a tour that included other locations at Antietam National Battlefield and the C&O Canal National Historic Park. The focus at Antietam was partnerships. So this was an opportunity to spotlight our cooperative agreement that allows us to operate a Heritage Area Visitor Center at this location. And I was really pleased that this photo caught the Delaplane Foundation logo at our video presentation area. The Delaplane Foundation has been a generous group as we upgrade exhibits here, applying a plan that actually Preservation Maryland helped us put together back before the pandemic, and little by little we've been implementing that. You can go to the next slide, please, Andrew. So here, yet another increment in that plan. This slide offers a glimpse of the work that is currently underway at the Newcomer House. And our purpose at the Newcomer House is to operate a visitor center to introduce visitors to all there is to see and do in the 3 counties that we serve, and particularly as they continue their Civil War explorations. But this is a property that is part of Antietam Battlefield, and it's the only domestic structure that witnessed the battle that is regularly open to the public. So visitor interest in that newcomer family experience is really high. We're currently in the first phase of a historic furnishings treatment of the front parlor. And what you're looking at here, on the right, you see the southeast parlor where we're going to be doing that work. And that firebox is going to be marbleized. The restoration of the house happened before Antietam acquired this property, right at the turn of the 20th to the 21st century. And for some reason, it looks like they prepped this firebox, but they never marbleized it. But upstairs, and you see the mantle and the fireplace upstairs above this room, we have extant original marbleizing of that firebox. And what you see there is the artist who's going to be doing that work for us holding up a sample that she created the other day. And then actually on April 23rd, she's going to be doing the marbleizing. And the public's invited to come and watch her and engage with her. And we also have some hands-on activities for all ages to sort of take home their own marbleizing projects. So come out on the 23rd. We'd love to see you and bring your families. Do you want to continue with the slides, Andrew? We have a spring marketing campaign underway. Several destination marketing placements have been made possible by an MHAA marketing grant and our DMOs. And what you're looking at here is a Baltimore Magazine online sponsored content ad with a choose your own adventure theme. We're playing with this theme in several different placements, different media outlets this spring. And they suggest a number of different outdoor family-friendly excursions and activities that can be done. And then if you want to keep going. We're also excited to be advertising on El Zol. This is our first marketing aimed at Spanish-speaking audiences. It builds on some work that we did last year with the summer intern and responds to partner affirmation of interest in doing more to attract and serve Spanish-speaking communities. So late April into about mid-May, let's tune into 107.9 and you can you can hear our announcements, 30-second broadcasts there. And then the last slide, if you don't mind. What you see here is an interpreter's workshop, out of which is emerging foundational principles for interpretation and an update to the interpretive themes that appear in our management plan. And we want to thank Gambrel State Park for allowing us to use the tea room. It was a cold but a little bit chilly place to gather at the end of March. This effort is part of a strategic plan that we've been working on all year. It's going to be finalized by the end of May. And really, this moment in time is the perfect moment to be planning for a future that embraces the ongoing and evolving relevance of history. And I look forward to sharing that plan when it's completed and approved. So that's it from me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, Andrew, we're moving now to the action items, or hold on.
I believe we actually have 2 more Heritage Area Directors for the
I'm
report.
sorry, go right ahead.
Not a problem.
Hi, good morning. I'm Gail from the Stories of the Chesapeake Heritage Area, and I'm really excited to tell you a little bit about what's been going on in our heritage area. This winter, we started and have begun to carry on a winter workshop series. It were 2 different series. Andrew, you can move on to the next slide. The first of the workshops was a 3-part series called Nothing About Me Without Me, Making Shared Heritage Interpretation a Reality. The first workshop were Stories of Success. We had representatives from the Washington College Heartland Project, Kennard School, and the Kent County Legacy Day program talk about their programs, their partners, how they were reaching out, and what they were able to accomplish. The next one was Building on Success, and we talked about a couple of other emerging projects. One was down at Mount Pleasant Preservation Acre Farms. The others were about the shanty town on Kent Narrows. And then finally was creating collaborations, where we had a presentation on reaching out and had the opportunity for all those to attend to talk about projects they may want to do. The takeaway from these workshops, this was sponsored by our African American Heritage Committee, and while all the focus was on African American projects, the idea actually applies to everything from watermen and agriculture, that you cannot tell the story without having the person whose story is being told being in a leadership position in developing that story. And it seems obvious, but it happens all the time that stories are talked about without putting those people in the leadership position. This was extremely well attended. We had over 50 people attend the various workshops, and we've had another 50 people watch on our YouTube channel, because these have all been recorded. And Andrew, you can move on to the next one. Our next project workshop was Make That Project Happen. It was a 2-part series. The first part was writing successful grants, and the next part was finding that match and telling your story. And that was for all of our partners and anyone else that wanted to turn in, and it was aimed at trying to make our grants stronger, clearer, and easier for the reviewers. That also was well received, and is also has been watched several times on our YouTube channel. To move on to the next one. Atkins Arboretum, one of our partners, I put this in because it's so powerful, has come up with a project they're called Rooted Wisdom. They're working with Tony Cohen, and he has walked through Atkins Arboretum and talks about how self-liberators use nature in their quest for liberation. And through a small grant, we've helped provide a panel discussion between the people that filmed and Tony Cohen at the premiere, and also to make sure that the premiere was available online. Over 1,700 people watched the premiere online, and the numbers of people that are signing up to watch the Rooted Wisdom YouTube is incredible, and it's such a moving project. And so I would encourage everyone, if you have a chance, to go to naturesrole.org and look at that project. And you can go next slide, Andrew. And finally, we've come up with more of our recipe card workshop series. We do at least four every year. And as you can see, there's a recipe on one side and some sort of history lesson that applies to the recipe on the other. We try to get one from each county, and you can go to the next slide, Andrew. And these talk a little bit about the Hill, some Still Ponds, Maryland, which is on our scenic byway. Chesapeake Country Scenic Byway is where there were early women voters well before the national allowing women to vote. And so we thought it was important to recognize that in the women's night. And that's it. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot. Next up, we have Aaron with the Patapsco Valley Heritage Area.
Thanks, Andrew. Aaron Shapiro with the Patapsco Valley Heritage Area, and just will be brief. Here in the Patapsco Valley, we're celebrating Ellicott City's 250th anniversary. I figured that I'd let some folks from Ellicott City share their story. So I think if Andrew clicks the opening, we can play the first 45 seconds of pioneering along the Patapsco. Hopefully the sound
Innovation
plays.
can spring from many sources. In Ellicott City, Maryland, countless inventive and ingenious ideas were inspired by the Patapsco
Doesn't sound like
River.
the sound's working, right, Andrew?
This great rolling...
Sorry, it was coming through on my end. Let me go ahead and reshare and see if I can get that sound to come through. Is that coming
Innovation
through?
can spring from many sources. In
No,
Ellicott
it's okay.
City, Maryland.
Sorry about that. I'm not sure why it's not coming through.
That's fine. So what I'll say is that through an MHA project grant in cooperation with Maryland Public Television, Preservation Maryland, and Historic Ellicott City, we produced a 17-minute video pioneering along the Patapsco that premiered along with the opening of the Ellicott City Ellicott Legacy exhibit at the Museum of Howard County History this past February. You can watch the video on our YouTube channel. You can watch on the EC250 site both the virtual introduction to the museum exhibit, followed by the film, which was how it premiered for the first month through EC250. But there's a series of other events that we're highlighting in cooperation with EC250. And I wanted to mention April is National Poetry Month. And one of our mini grants from this year was the Howard County Poetry and Literary Society. And they've launched this April in 25 store windows across Ellicott City, the See-Through Poems exhibit. And there's also an online, 25 selected poems with some connection to Ellicott City or a theme related to Ellicott City that visitors to Ellicott City can see, and then click on a QR code. We'll take them to the online version that provides background on each of the poems. Some with very local connections about Benjamin Banneker, the puzzle of the Hound and the Hare, the Patapsco by Charles Soran. But I thought I would share this morning one that's highlighted by the image of the B&O Railway Museum that you see on the top of your slide by Edna St. Vincent Millay. And so bear with me for a second. It's relatively brief, but in honor of Poetry Month, the railroad track is miles away and the day is loud. This poem is called Travel. The railroad track is miles away and the day is loud with voices speaking. Yet there isn't a train goes by all day, but I hear its whistle shrieking. All night there isn't a train goes by, though the night is still for sleep and dreaming. But I see its cinders red on the sky and hear its engines steaming. My heart is warm with the friends I make, and better friends I'll not be knowing. Yet there isn't a train I wouldn't take, no matter where it's going. And so I think if you go visit Ellicott City this month, and there'll be on sites through June, in businesses and storefront windows through June, you can see the 25 poems and learn a little bit about their background and history. And then I wanted to close with also noting the grand opening of the Ellicott Mills Children's Museum this on April 23rd. It's highlighted a bit in the opening video from Pioneering Along the Patapsco, but also funded with a mini grant this year to develop a garden at Ellicott Mills Children's Museum that incorporates the use of garden plants from the early 1800s, drawing on the work of John Bartram, highlighting education programs and promoting the use of native plants in contemporary landscapes while beautifying the grounds of the Children's Museum up near the historic courthouse in Old Ellicott City. So we really encourage you to come out to Ellicott City over the course of 2022 and share in the 250th anniversary celebration. And go watch the video on our website and on our YouTube channel. From the first minute, you'll certainly hear from folks in Ellicott City sharing some of their connections to this vital and important place. So thanks for your time.
Thank you, Aaron. And again, my apologies for the video audio not coming through there.
Countless inventive.
Hi, everyone. This is Kim with the Gateway to the West in Garrett County. And so I have a few things I want to share with you folks today. I only have the one slide, but so I'm going to start with that. It's kind of funny that Aaron and I were back to back because Garrett County is celebrating our 150th anniversary. And so we, similar to Patapsco, have a large event planned along with several small events leading up to that. So in September, we will have a large scale event celebrating our 150th anniversary that will include a whole lot of things. We'll have a lot of performers. We'll have John W. Garrett performed by Al Feldstein, for anybody who knows Al. We'll have our local theater club will be performing Keepsakes. So that's a historical play. We'll have a history walk, which will include all of our state parks, all of our townships, and several of our businesses that have been here over 100 years. We'll be displaying in our Heritage Hall at the fairgrounds. This is in coordination with our county commissioners and county government, and will be an entirely free event. We're even doing free food, so you'll get a free food ticket when you come in. The intent was for everyone in the county to be able to come to this, no matter any kind of economical, challenge that they might have. So we're really excited about it. It's a really large event, and we're looking forward to celebrating our 150th. So if you can pencil out that day and come join us, we'd love to have anybody who wants to join us. And so I'm going to move on then from that. Just an update on our Negro Mountain signage. We have formed a committee, and we will be replacing that signage on the National Road. So the Historical Society for Garrett County, myself, MDOT, the NAACP, all have representation on that committee. And in addition to formal signage being placed on the National Road, there'll be interpretive panels telling the story and brochures to accompany that in our regional welcome centers, and a website to direct people to learn the actual history of Negro Mountain and the story behind it. So we just had our first meeting, so we're in the beginning phases of that, but we look forward to sharing that history again with folks that come into the area. And then lastly, again, it's a National Road update. We did have the National Road Festival last year, but it was, of course, scaled down because of COVID. It is scheduled again for May 20th, and the National Road Festival had really planned a much larger event prior to COVID, and we weren't able to kind of fulfill that. So this year's National Road Festival is really going to be an expanded version of what we've done in the past. The Wagon Train will be joining us again after a 3-year hiatus, so we're excited to have them back. The Heritage Area is sponsoring an educational visit for our 4th graders in the county. That's when they study our local history. So we are sponsoring that educational component for the 4th graders to be bussed into the National Road Festival, and then they'll get an education. The wagon train will do an educational lesson for those fourth graders coming into the event. And in addition to all the other events, art events and live music, historic food, dinners, and just a whole weekend full of events. So if you are not busy, we would love to have you for that too. So that's our update. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. Oh, and Kim, I think you're on mute. Kim, I think you're on mute at the moment.
I accidentally bumped that. So I almost forgot this. I'm glad I sent the slide. So in addition to our event for the 150th, we created a coin collection. That coin collection there's 8 coins in the collection, and each coin represents one of our townships. Each coin was created or designed, I should say, by the township and illustrates some kind of historical component for that township. And then there's the coins are free. You have to attend, different activities or events in those townships to collect the coins. And then there's a coin book to put those in that has additional history, county history inside the coin book. There will be a limited amount of the full collections available at the end in September, but the intent is to get our people out to the local townships so they can share their individual history with our local community. So the pictures are kind of small, but they're on our website. Our dedicated 150th website is 150.garrettcounty.org. So you can jump on there if you wanted to see them. Thank you.
Thanks again.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for holding out till the end, I think. I'd like to announce 2 programs that we are glad to present in partnership with the Peel Museum. And the reason why I'd like to bring out the Peel Museum because MHAA and BNHA and the state has contributed a tremendous amount of funding in order to restore the Peel Museum, which was the first museum in the Northern Hemisphere for preserving and having artifacts from around the world. And also, as you know, Peel is a part of the Rembrandt Peale family. So they are opening the museum, and so we are glad to present 2 programs. Paul Chott Smith will be doing a virtual lecture, which, as you can see by the title, Mangy Dog, Abolition, Indian Removal, and the Pride of Denial, it will be a very provocative lecture series that we are presenting, as I said, virtually. However, I'm really excited to announce our May event. Andrew, you can change the slide. If some of you have heard of the book called The Black Butterfly, The White Ale, which basically describes the politics and of redlining and how it has impacted Baltimore with 4 underserved communities, which kind of their wings kind of make a black butterfly. So what we have created is a film that is called Voices of a Black Butterfly, which interviews several people from different ethnic groups that live in Baltimore and have a connection with the city. And so we will be presenting that film on May the 13th, 5:30 to 7 at the Peel Museum. It will be the first time that the Peel will be open since its renovation. So we are very excited. And based upon the funding that was provided by everybody that's on the TAC with your approval, it will be really important for you to be there and see the film and see the new Peel. So you have to go on Eventbrite, or you can go to our website and click on to the Eventbrite and register. It will be a live event. They do require vaccination, and we will be masked during the inside based upon the COVID numbers. But we also will be able to go outside and see the historic garden and just get a full tour of the museum. In addition to that, the author of Black Butterfly will be present to give a talk about his book and to sign his book for you to have your own personal copy. There is a $15 donation requested, and that $15 goes to the Baltimore National Heritage Area's youth initiatives. So we're doing programs with youth in the city. So thank you, and I hope to see you.
Thank you, Shantae.
Yeah, Bridget Carty, Lower Susquehanna Heritage Greenway. I'm the Alaska Promise. Just wanted to let you know that on Saturday we had a trail ribbon cutting. We opened up a trail first time in many, many years. What you see here, if you can see the different colors, 4 different colors. The blue is what MHA has helped fund in the past. That's the JOK Trail. The green is a reroute. The red is what we just completed, and the yellow is a future. So Andrew, if you wouldn't mind. Next slide, please. Yeah, so this gives you a better idea of the blue. The green is a reroute to get the trail off the road. The red is around the Vulcan Quarry, 1.1 mile trail. And then the yellow is our next project that we're currently working on assessing. Thank you to Marty and Nita for their help. This is MDTA property and then state park property. So now you'll be able to travel between Havre de Grace and up to 95. So it's about 4 miles of trail, and there's just one obstacle. Next slide, please, Andrew. This rock climb. So I just always like to make folks aware that it's not just an easy walk, but it actually is a hike. And some folks are deterred, like perhaps the local heritage area director, but clearly young children can travel this, and you get to ring a bell at the end. So yeah, we're just real excited about that. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Bridget.
All right, Andrew, we can head over to the action items, which are amendments are us.
Sounds good. So our first action item for today is going to be a grant amendment to 2 grants with the Chesapeake Heritage Conservancy regarding the Skipjack Martha Lewis. So we actually have 2 active grants with the organization, a fiscal year 2019 and fiscal year 21 grant. And during the course of performing routine repairs on the ship, a handful of serious structural issues were identified, meaning that the ship is actually in jeopardy of no longer being seaworthy. As a result, the folks at Chesapeake Heritage Conservancy have requested an amendment to both their fiscal year 19 and 21 grants to address the structural challenges to the ship to ensure that it will be seaworthy. So, as usual, the entire request for these changes is available on Google Drive, but to basically summarize the changes that we're looking at here, the Conservancy would be adding the increased repair costs to their fiscal year 21 grant. They would be transferring the costs of masts and rigging work from their fiscal year 21 to 2019 grant. And then to make sure the balances stay the same, they would be removing the educational materials from their fiscal year 19 grant that had originally been proposed. In short, what they're looking to do is simply take out some of the educational work that was associated with the operation of the ship and instead replace that with the costs required to keep the ship seaworthy. So you can see a quick breakdown of what their budget looks like. Again, in the fiscal year 19, they're going to be focusing in on covering the costs of repairs to the mast and rigging. And with the revised fiscal year 21, the majority of the grant is going to be going towards addressing some of the issues that you saw in the previous pictures. So here is the language of the resolution as proposed, And I believe we have Miss Fraser Walker with us today from the Chesapeake Heritage Conservancy, as well as perhaps Mr. Carl Faulkner, the president, and Dennis Taylor, the project monitor. The three of them should be available to answer any questions that you all might have.
Do you have any questions for the proponents of the amendments?
No, I make a motion to approve.
All right, thank you very much. Motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Pete Lesher, I'll second.
All right, a motion and a second. Any further discussion on it? All right, then I'll just call the question. And everyone in favor of approving this grant amendment, signify by saying aye or raise your hand. Anyway, aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, seeing none, thank you very much. Item is approved. Go ahead, Andrew.
All right, our next action item here for today is going to be a boundary amendment for the Heart of the Civil War Heritage Area. You can see the original boundary of the heritage area contained here in red, and the proposed change contained here in yellow. And really the core of this change is going to be including the entire campus of the of Mount St. Mary's, as well as the National Shrine Grotto of Our Lady of Lourdes. But to discuss the boundary amendment further, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Liz Chateau.
Thank you, Andrew. So this is really, in large part, a map correction. The Mount St. Mary's University campus with the Grotto of Lourdes is, it's represented in our management plan. Last year, we were able to help this group secure a grant for a visitor experience plan, which of course wasn't tied to any particular site. So the fact that at least part of the campus and the grotto were included in our boundaries allowed it to qualify. We realized at that point that there was a section missing, and we knew we would need to address it. And it turns out that they are in for a capital grant this time around with for pre-development costs for a pavilion. And part of that project will be finalizing a choice of sites. But by adding the expanded boundary now, and again, really just correcting the map to what had been the intent all along, it gives them the full range of options when they do choose a site, and hopefully choose that with some heritage area support for those pre-development activities. And that's really as simple as it is. There are fascinating Civil War stories that have not been fully told here, and I won't go into them now, but we're really looking forward to expanding the way that we're interpreting the sites in our northern Frederick County by bringing some of that in.
Thank you, Les.
Any questions? Entertain a motion on this boundary amendment.
This is Bert Comerall. I'll move that we accept the boundary amendment.
Thank you, Bert. And a second?
This is Natalie. I'll second it.
Okay, I'll take the second from Natalie. That's fine. Motion and a second. Any further discussion at all? I call the question. All in favor of the boundary amendment, signify by saying aye or raise your hand. Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much. That motion carries.
Thank you.
All right, our next boundary amendment up for consideration is coming from the Baltimore National Heritage Area. This administrative amendment is actually addressing an error that occurred when there was a discrepancy in the 2020 boundary amendment on MHT's side between the amendment as it was written and the map as it was drawn up. The three communities that you see here highlighted, including Sandtown Winchester, Harlem Park, and the Highlandtown Arts and Entertainment District, were mentioned in the written boundary amendment, but were not actually included in the outline map that we provided here at MHT. So this amendment would be rectifying those two documents. But I'll go ahead and turn it over to Shantae to discuss further.
So the complication here, and I'm somewhat surprised, we had originally thought in our original boundary that Sandtown, Winchester, and Harlan Park were included. That is the map that was submitted to MHT in 2004, I believe. And also it was the map that was included in our congressional designation. So when we did the 2020 boundary amendment, that wasn't even discussed. What we were trying to do is push the boundary amendment, the boundary for East Baltimore into the Highland Entertainment District, which was the intention. When we proceeded to go to Congress to get our state boundary amendment adjusted with the federal boundary, that's when we realized that there was a huge mistake with our map. It did not include Highlandtown and also Sandtown, Winchester. So both of those geographic regions were always included and intended to be a part of the Baltimore National Heritage Area. So as it stands, we are looking for an administrative amendment to correct this error. And so for an FYI, this is also the map that has been submitted to the United States Congress to adjust the map so that we may include them for the National Heritage Area. Are there any questions?
Shantae, have you got, this is Rob, have you got similar concurrence expected from the federal request?
The federal, they have accepted it. The map, MPS has already designed the map. It has gone forward. However, as all of us know, it's a congressional bill that was submitted, and it was also submitted for our reappropriations for 2024, 23 to 34. So until that particular congressional bill is approved and authorized, we will stay with the state's boundary for MHAA, and we will have to basically acknowledge and only use the federal boundary that is in place for any federal funding. So the answer to your question is that we will have two individual boundaries until Congress signs off on it, and we don't know when that would be.
I got you. Thank you very much. I'm not opposed to having the state move forward first. I just wanted to see if there was any friction at all at the federal level.
There's no friction. They didn't seem that our contacts with MPS had no problem with adjusting the boundary. The boundary amendment request was submitted through Senator Cardin's office. So there hasn't been any pushback on the boundary amendment. It just is because it's a congressional bill. We just have to wait until Congress signs off. If we are lucky, it'll be earmarked and we'll get it through. But right now, there's no expectation that it'll be earmarked.
We will. I'm happy to move it forward here at the Maryland level, and then we'll just maybe that will make it slightly easier for people to understand that it needs to be fixed. But I'm not going to guarantee anything at the federal level, but happy to move it forward at the state. Not a problem.
Just one. We appreciate it greatly.
Yeah, go ahead, Bob.
Robert, just one editorial observation. There was almost, it's extremely likely that there was any localized antagonism about this because appropriations bills didn't pass and stuff got omnibused. Too much stuff got lumped in together, and so it was too easy to lose too much stuff when climate was targeted for reductions in the budget. That would have happened to them the same that it happened to Chesapeake office appropriation wishes as well.
Oh,
just
yes.
chew it up and try again.
Yes, sir. I forgot, Mr. Campbell, that you were part of that entourage. Yes.
I'm no generalized authority. I just happen to know this one because we lost our appropriation wish for this year as well because it went down with some some omnibus stuff that was not passed.
Well, I would have to admit, and I don't want to keep this up because we have a process here. Our primary concern was not the boundary. We just thought that this would be a good time to do the boundary amendment. Our primary concern was getting appropriations to 2034. That was what we were really trying to do. So now we have to start all over again and try to get that pushed. Otherwise, we will sunset in federal calendar year of FY23. And that is not what we want to happen.
I don't think anybody wants that to happen to you, so that's great.
Okay, so thank you very much.
Sure. All right, so any further questions? Nothing, all right, then I'll take a motion. I hear a motion to approve the
I'll make the
boundary.
motion.
There, thank you very much. And a second?
Second.
And a second. A motion and a second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, the motion carries. Thank you very much. Next one, Andrew.
All right, the next boundary amendment up for consideration is with the Stories of the Chesapeake Heritage Area, and that is to include the town of Galena. You'll see here in the map, we've got the heritage area shaded in purple, and the town itself is currently surrounded on all sides by heritage area, but not included. But to speak a little further to this, I will go ahead and turn it over to Gail.
Yeah, yes.
Thank you. We are asking for an administrative boundary amendment to include Galena. Galena was originally included in our management plan to be part of the heritage area in 2005. At that time, their mayor and council, while being very supportive of the heritage area, didn't wish to spend the funding to amend their comprehensive plan. They have since amended their comprehensive plan and are going through another update of the comprehensive plan. And with the new All-American Road that passes right through Galena, in fact, it's the intersection you see there in the middle, is Galena wishes to be included, and our board voted unanimously that we would love to see Galena be included. It is a historic town. It is a historic crossroads through the stories of the Chesapeake, and we think it'll be a great addition to our heritage area.
Thank you, Gail.
Any questions on this one? All right, I'll entertain a motion.
I make the motion.
Thank you, Lee. Second?
Second. Bert.
And a second from Bert. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you. That motion carries. Next one there, Andrew.
All right, and our final boundary amendment for the day is coming from the Beach to Bay Heritage Area, and this is in regards to the area around the San Domingo School over here in Comico County, as well as the area around the Germantown Road in Worcester County. And for this, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Lisa.
Thank you, Andrew. So we have another boundary amendment to include two Rosenwald schools. One is San Domingo, the other is the Germantown School on Track Road in the community of Germantown. Both have been beautifully restored schools. They are part of our programming. They both include outdoor interpretive signs, and it was just a gross oversight. And as you can see from the slide, or if you can't really see that slide probably, they are both so extremely close to the boundary that this is just making some minor adjustments to include them within the boundary. And the Germantown School has come in with a non-capital grant request. So their grant request will hinge on being part of the heritage area.
Great.
That's it.
Any
Pretty
questions
simple.
on this one? Hearing no question, I'll take the motion.
Pete Lesher, so move.
Thank you, Pete. A second?
I'll second. Nick Redding.
Thank you, Nick. Motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye or raise your hand. See?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Aye.
All right. Thank you very much. The motion carries.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, down to discussion items now, Andrew.
Yes, that's correct. And on our agenda for today, we have a single discussion item, and that is a request here for volunteers to serve on the management and marketing grant review panels. So as you recall, starting last year, the authority actually individually reviews all of the management and marketing grants that we receive each year. And to review those grants, we create a panel of folks, panel of volunteers to take a look at them. So in terms of the time commitment that we would be looking at, if you volunteer to do the marketing grants, you'll be looking at between 5 and 7 grants, usually on average. Whereas with the management grants, of course, we see all 13 heritage areas come in annually, so you'd be looking at 13 grants to review. In terms of responsibilities, you'd be asked to read each of the grants, complete a simple score sheet, and then attend a single meeting in June where you would either recommend grants for or not for funding. If you are interested in this opportunity, please send me an email and I will go ahead and get you set up once those grants come in. Typically, we're looking for a panel of, let's say, 3 to 5 folks for each, the management and marketing. But if anyone has any questions here, I'd be more than happy to answer them. Otherwise, if you are interested, please send me an email and I'll go ahead and get you all set up.
Andrew, can you anticipate the date of the June meetings yet?
I cannot, but I'll make sure that since we're looking at just 3 to 5 people, it'll be responsive to the needs of the people on the panel.
Any other questions for Andrew? All right, thank you very much. I guess we're down to member announcements. Are there any announcements from the members of the authority? All right, seeing none. Any new business? I see the chat from Lucille Walker. The coalition would like to thank Andrew for all of the hard work. I would also like to thank Andrew for all of his hard work, all the hard work, and I have mine too here. Andrew and Elizabeth in absentia for holding things steady as we go through the state process of making sure people can come on board correctly. So I really do appreciate Andrew's work and clearly, but Elizabeth and the MHT staff to make sure that they bolstered everything that's needed for Andrew to be successful. So really do appreciate that. And my only other point of personal privilege here as the chair is to remind everybody that the state budget included $1,000 for every year that Maryland has been a part of the Maryland 250. So we got $250,000 to start the Maryland 250 Commission funded. That will be available to us in, of course, July 1st. And I appreciate that the heritage areas will play an important role in telling the story of the founding of our country, not only the founding of our country, but extending the extraordinary promise of the revolution through time, even to this current day, as the blessings of liberty continue to unfold. That is our kind of a focus for the Maryland 250 Commission. We'll try to keep you apprised of that work, and I'm happy that the General Assembly recognized that it's important work to be done, and it needs to be funded, and it needs to carry forward. So that's my point of personal privilege as the chair to pass it on to you, that I've already mentioned that the heritage areas will be fantastic partners in having the stories told across the state. And we've got a great story to tell as a state, and sandwiched between Pennsylvania and Virginia. We are determined that they will know that that little crack in the map where that important day is part of the history of this nation in a way that neither Pennsylvania or Virginia are. So not that we're jumping on any of the other original 13 colonies. However, we have an important role. Yeah.
Credit where credit is due.
There you go. Anything else for the good of the order here? All right then. Seeing none, thank you very much for your
Very welcome,
participation.
Mayor.
Thank you again, Andrew. There is just not enough words to say how well Andrew's been doing in making sure that everything stays on track. So thank you very much. And I wish everyone a good day and a good week. And thank you very much for your participation. Bye now.
Thanks a lot, everyone.
Thank you.
Bravo. Thank you.
Thank you.